I'm Phil Gallagher. I'm a professor here at the University of Kansas, and I'm director of the Applied Physiology Laboratories. The classes that I teach are exercise physiology, exercise biochemistry, as well as at the undergrad level. At the graduate level, I teach muscle physiology, biochemistry, as well as the doctoral seminar class. So we currently have three main research projects that we're working on. The first one is looking at satellite cells in skeletal muscle. And these satellite cells are actually muscle-specific stem cells. And what they do is, after muscle damage occurs, these satellite cells come in and help with the repair and remodel that skeletal muscle to basically make it better. A lot of times you'll get this muscle damage after a heavy bout of exercise, an eccentric exercise that causes damage. And we're looking at the effects of training status and how that affects these satellite cells. That's the first one. The second one is looking at the immune cells, particularly T cells. So we're looking at how T cells get activated during exercise. There's this ongoing idea that if you do high intensity exercise, that actually causes immunosuppression. And what we're seeing is the exact opposite, at least with these T cells. You do high intensity exercise and these T cells get activated. They want to fight something. We just haven't been told them. Because it works in the adaptive immune system, these T cells are part of that. They need to be told what to fight, like an antigen or a bacteria. With exercise, there's no bacteria introduced to them, but what we do see is that with high intensity exercise, these T cells get activated, they just have nothing to fight. And the third thing we're looking at is with aging and what's called excitation-contraction coupling. So we're looking at some morphological changes that might happen between old individuals and younger individuals, and to see how this excitation-contraction coupling is different between those two groups. So there are two things I really get excited about why I want to come here every day. One is the research itself. So I enjoy discovering things. I enjoy the actual research process. The other thing that I really enjoy is interacting with the students. Both the undergraduate and graduate level, their inquisitive mind, how motivated they are. It's actually quite a pleasure to work here because of that. I'm really passionate about basically how exercise affects health. So we're looking at all these different research projects that I have is basically how physical activity and exercise helps to improve basically the health and well-being of individuals. In particular, I'm looking at it at mainly the cellular level, but we also look at whole muscle changes and whole body changes that occur as well. I've been at KU since 2004, so this is my 19th year at KU. I'm actually been here the longest out of all the faculty members here in our department. What brought me here, a friend of mine was actually in my current position, to be honest with you. He was the director of the Applied Physiology Lab. He encouraged me to apply for this position as an assistant professor way back in 2004. And at first I was kind of leery about going to this position. I actually had a couple other interviews set up before this one. I was here as soon as I saw the facilities and Lawrence and the whole surrounding area, close to Kansas City. I actually declined those other interviews because I was offered the job shortly after I interviewed. So I said, yeah, I'm going to take this job because it's pretty nice here. What's kept me here is the fact that the faculty members here, our department, we get along very well. I get to do my research, and there's no real pressure for me to do one type of research or a different type of research. I get to choose what research I want to do. As the director of the Applied Physiology Lab, I kind of get to manage things as well as the fact that it is Lawrence. Lawrence is a great town. My wife and I, we live in a log cabin, outside of town. We really enjoy it. So, a couple things that I'm really proud of. So, one main thing is just all the PhD students that I have, they've gone on and gotten jobs almost immediately. So, and they've been very successful at it. A lot of them gone on to get postdocs at fairly high-level institutions and research institutions. A few of them that wanted to get into teaching, they got teaching jobs right off the bat. So that's one thing I'm really excited about that I've done. The other thing is just the research in general that I've done is looking at, first part of my career I was looking at mainly signaling pathways associated with skeletal muscle and how exercise affects them. We published quite a bit in that area, and moving to this new area with the effects of exercise on the immune system, that's pretty exciting for me as well. And then lastly, just looking at the undergrad level, almost every single individual here that has wanted to, for example, go to PT school, they've gotten into PT school. Individuals want to go to med school, they've gone into med school. So it's a pretty good accomplishment from my point of view. So I got my undergraduate degree at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. Actually was on a cross-country skiing scholarship there, which there's not a lot of cross-country skiing here, but up in Wisconsin, obviously there is. And then after, about the time I was about ready to graduate, I'm like, well, what do I want? I knew I wanted to go on to get my master's degree. I didn't know where. Shortly after I decided I wanted to do that, a position opened up as a graduate research assistant up at Northern Michigan University to study cross-country skiing and rock climbing, and I had just gotten into rock climbing as well, so I'm like, well, this is a no-brainer to go up there. Sure enough, we studied mainly rock climbing, but a little bit of cross-country skiing as well. And I thought I was going to go into sports physiology, but during that time when I was at Northern Michigan University, I read a couple books. One was by an individual named David Costel, and so he was at Ball State University in Indiana, still is there. Actually, he's retired from there. So I go, okay, well, I want to now go study under him. So I got my PhD, or studied my PhD under David Costel at first, but he retired shortly after I got there. I don't know if that caused me to retire or not, but that's a different issue. Probably not. But then I studied under Scott Trappy, Dr. Scott Trappy there. And while we were there, while I was thinking I was going to study glucose metabolism, which is what Costel mainly studied, they had just switched into looking at more muscle physiology. In particular, they were looking at a technique where they can tease out individual muscle fibers and then determine their shortening velocity and how strong they contract, which is a pretty novel technique at the time. That was 20 years ago, so obviously it's not quite as novel as it was then, but we got some interesting data from that as well. My hometown is in Wausau, Wisconsin, so it's right in the middle of the state. If you basically look for a big town, big, about 40, 50,000, that's it. In the middle of the state, that's where I grew up. With my free time around here, I cycle quite a bit. So I got into gravel biking about 7 years ago or so. I do a couple, well, every year I try to do at least one century ride, gravel century ride. Also got into mountain biking, so I got a relatively new mountain bike. So that's mainly what I do for my free time. Also hike around my house with my dogs and my wife. I have diabetes, actually. So, and I don't have type 1 diabetes, I don't have type 2 diabetes. I have what's called type 1.5, which is a pretty rare type of diabetes. It's also called latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. So it's where, as you get older, it's more like a type 1 diabetic where your pancreas stops producing the insulin you need. So I'm actually on an insulin pump, which I don't know, I can show you later, but it's an actual pump that pumps insulin into me, and I can program it to give me certain amounts of insulin throughout the day.